Thanks, Chris. Thank you all for joining us today. So this has become an annual breakdown of the data that's been collected from AGI's Geoscience Student Exit Survey. However, this year we're going to do this a little differently. So the survey has been running for 5 years, and instead of showing you 2018's, the data from 2018, we decided to show an analysis of the past 5 years and what we've seen having the survey running for so long. So since we've been running this, we've found that it has provided quite a few benefits to AGI and to the geoscience community as a whole. First off, and one of our biggest recognitions is that we have found critical issues that are a part of geoscience post-secondary education, and we're able to have data that show some of these issues. For example, we keep hearing that that employers would like graduates with higher quantitative skills and knowledge, and we are seeing that in the data as well through the exit survey. So we're giving data and we're backing up what we're hearing anecdotally from the community. We're also able to recognize new trends before the federal data sets can pick them up. We saw the drop in hiring in the oil and gas industry before it was made public in the federal data sets from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's influenced the development of new projects at AGI. So we've had a few one-off surveys looking at internships at field camps across the country, et cetera. And then it's influenced some of the other projects that we have running. So the Geoscience Online Learning Initiative, some of the programs that have come about in our goalie program have been influenced by what we saw in the exit survey. And it's also opened the door for new research questions. So I've had individuals and researchers reach out to me, and we've collaborated on projects and investigations based on an initial question posed from the data that I was able to publish from the exit survey. And because departments get the data for their department back in aggregate form, it gets regularly used in department assessments, and I'm constantly providing that information to departments throughout the year. The images at the bottom are the covers of each of the reports that has come out with the data from that year. So we release a report every year, both digitally and in paper form, and the 2018 one will be out soon. But all of these can be found on our website. So just some quick demographics. Everyone that's participated are geoscience undergraduates or graduates that are completing their degree. And so over the past 5 years, we've had varying levels of participation, between 500 and 700 students that are completing their degree have taken this survey, which is excellent. We're getting an excellent response rate each year. The male-female distribution has been really close to 50-50 each year. That hasn't changed very much. It varies a little bit, a few percentage points here and there by degree and by year, but not very much. It's pretty even. And the percentage of graduates from underrepresented racial and ethnic populations does vary a bit, but the majority of our graduates that participate in this survey are Caucasian, with a growing population by degree level. So you're going to see more doctoral graduates that are from other countries, but we do see individuals from other countries in the bachelor's and master's level graduating in the United States. And so these percentages of graduates from underrepresented racial and ethnic populations are pretty similar to what we're seeing nationally, put out by the National Science Foundation and the Department of Education. So the next few slides, we're going to go over skills development and participation in co-curricular activities that we have been seeing over the past 5 years. And so what these graphs will show is the percentage each year from the lightest color being 2013 to the darkest color representing 2017 for each degree level. So blue will always be bachelor's, green will always be master's, and yellow to orange will always be doctoral graduates. And so we'll see a series of these three graphs as we move forward. And what we've seen with quantitative skills development is that there hasn't been a lot of change over the past 5 years in the coursework that our bachelor's graduates or our master's graduates have been taking. We find the majority of them take Calculus 1 and Calculus 2, but then the participation drops off pretty dramatically from there. When you look closely at the data, you see the same groupings of people that are taking Calculus 3, linear algebra, differential equations, and quantitative or computational methods. We also would like to see higher participation in statistics amongst all degree levels. So if you look at the master's, again, it's very similar. Participation just over 50%, up to 60% of statistics. Majority of them are taking Calculus 1 and Calculus 2. And while you see a higher participation in the higher level courses after Calculus 2 amongst masters, you still see a drop to below 50% in most of those categories each year. And when you look at the doctorates, again, participation in Calculus 1 and Calculus 2, and higher percentage participation in the other math courses, but it varies quite a bit from year to year. And also statistics between 60 and 70%, we would like to see that higher as well. The statistics allows students and graduates to have the ability to really analyze the work that's being done. And we are hearing from employers that statistics in particular is something they would really like to see amongst their graduates at all degree levels. When you look at field skills, nearly every graduate takes at least one field experience. So whether that's in a field camp, an extended 6 to 8 week experience, or if it's a field course within one of their courses, or a one-off field experiences like a field trip. So nearly everyone takes at least one. But we are seeing participation rates increase over time amongst bachelor graduates. And those that are not planning to hasn't changed that much. So that change is coming from those that were planning to attend. So they are, as we've gone through over time, they are taking on those field courses before, or field camps before they finish their bachelor's degree. The majority of master's students do participate in a field camp at some point during their post-secondary education. And we still see some that are planning to at the point of graduation, but those percentages are pretty low. And then when you look at doctoral graduates, we've seen actually a decrease in the participation of field camp amongst doctoral graduates, and an increase in those that say they aren't planning on taking it. But like I said, it's very likely they've had at least one, and probably most likely more than one field course and or field experience during their post-secondary education. When you look at research skills, what we've seen is 20% to 25% of bachelor's graduates have not participated in a research experience before graduation. We think that's a little concerning. Research experiences are really essential for testing out those technical skills and knowledge that they've gained in their courses, as well as allowing the students to problem solve and critically think through their research problem. So we would like to see that percentage of bachelor's graduates that are not participating in research experiences to go down. And we would like to see more of them participate. But when you look at master's graduates, the majority of them have at least one research experience, which would make sense with a lot of the programs that are taking on master's students. They typically have, if it's not a thesis program, they typically have a capstone project or something like that, which would require some research. And nearly every doctoral graduate, unsurprisingly, has at least one research experience. Most of them have multiple experiences in the research arena. However, when you think about the research that's being done, particularly if you think of their honors research or their thesis or their dissertation, that individual research project, they're likely to use different methods and different research skills depending on the field that they're getting their degree in. So this figure, out of the past 5 years, everyone that was an atmospheric science major that participated in individual research, you can see the majority at both the undergraduate and graduate level are working in a computer-based research method environment. So you're developing different skills. You're developing different skills using the computer than you would if it was a field-based or a lab-based project. But this changes by field. So if you look at geochemistry majors, the majority of them are doing lab-based research for their individual research. And while they are doing other methods as well, this is the majority of their work. And then when you look at geology majors, for undergrads, many of them are doing field-based and lab-based. But if you look at graduate students in geology, you see a higher participation in computer-based methods. And so we have more examples of this, of how this changes by degree field, but these are 3 examples of how the field can affect the development of certain skills in the research arena. And then another co-curricular activity that we are focusing on is internships. Internships are incredibly important for professional development and really learning, really picking up some of those professional skills like communication, collaboration, networking, many of these things that employers are looking for and looking for examples of students' use before entering the workplace, as well as this gives students an idea of what a geoscientist does from day to day and how that may change from industry to industry. However, over 60% of our bachelor's graduates are not participating in internships. And when we follow up with another question asking if they're applying, the majority are not putting out applications either. So we would really like to see higher participation in internships, particularly from bachelor's graduates, but we'd like that to see that at all degree levels. Amongst master's graduates, you have higher participation. So nearly 60% of your master's graduates have at least one internship, and a fifth of them have more than one internship. And I think this is important to point out. I think master's graduates understand that their post-secondary or their graduate education is a bit limited. They're there for 2-3 years and they're out. And many are looking to go right into the workforce after they finish their degree. And so I think many master's students recognize the importance of internships and are willing to get out there and find them and participate so that they have a leg up once they graduate and enter the workforce. But amongst doctoral graduates, again, you see the majority are not participating in an internship. And I think this is interesting in that I think most people, when they talk about doctoral students, it's talking about their pathway in the academic in an academic career. And so maybe an internship is a little less important if a student is planning to go into an academic career. But we are hearing from more and more doctoral graduates that are looking to enter the workforce. And having this experience is going to help them immensely. But oftentimes we also talk to doctoral students that don't understand why an internship would be important. And so we've been going back and forth on this one, and we recognize the difference in industry opportunities at each degree level. So after in the survey we ask about their co-curricular activities, we then follow that with what their future plans are. And so this graph shows the students that were planning to attend graduate school immediately after graduation. Again, it's flipped. So again, the lighter color is 2013. The lightest color is 2013. The darkest color is 2017 for both blue and green. And while we see somewhat of a decrease amongst bachelor's graduates planning to attend graduate school over the past 5 years, we've seen a definite increase in the percentage of master's graduates planning to attend graduate school. And I think there's a couple of things influencing this. First off, many graduate programs have talked to us and told us that they are at capacity for enrollments, and so they can't take on as many students each year as they would like to, and they get a lot of applications that they have to sort through. And so that may be why we see a bit of a decrease amongst bachelor's graduates. Maybe they have recognized that it can be kind of competitive to get into a master's or a doctoral program, and so maybe going into the workforce for a year or two before going back to grad school is a better option. However, as you will see in a future slide, the hiring of master's graduates has decreased over these 5 years. And so it would make sense that more master's graduates would be looking to go for a second graduate degree, because entering the workforce might be a little difficult at this time with hiring as it is. So when you look at hiring, this is hiring at the point of graduation. So a lot of times it takes a couple of months to find a job. And so we're not counting out those people, but because this survey is given out at graduation, these are those graduates that have secured a job in the geosciences at the point of graduation. And so I don't think it's surprising that that hiring at the bachelor's level is between 10 and 15% over the past 5 years. We do see a slight decrease over time that kind of matches with hiring at the other degree levels too. But I do think it's interesting that there's a slight increase over the past 3 years of bachelor's graduates not even seeking employment in the geosciences. Now, some of those may be students that are planning to go into graduate school. But these are also students that are like, you know what, I'm going to try something else and look in a different field. A lot of times because they need to find a job now and they need to be making money right now to pay off student loans or any other pressures in their life. However, when you look at master's graduates, now you can see that decrease. We went from 43% in 2013 that had a job at the point of graduation down to 31% in 2017. And along with that decrease in hiring, we saw an increase of bachelor's graduates that were seeking employment in the geosciences. We also saw a slight increase in those that were not seeking employment in the geosciences. When we ask these students if they're looking for employment outside the geosciences, why, we get a variety of answers. But like I said earlier, a lot of it is motivated by money. But there are some people in the past couple of years that have mentioned feeling disenfranchised by their experience and not as interested in geo as they were. So I think that's important that we keep that in mind when we're working with geoscience students that are looking to enter into the workforce, making sure that expectations are measured appropriately. And then amongst doctoral graduates, we saw a pretty drastic decrease in hiring from 70% in 2014 to 36% in 2017. And then that corresponds with an increase in the doctoral graduates that are seeking employment in the geosciences. And you'll see changes in just a second in the industries that are hiring these graduates as well. So we decided to use an area graph to show the change in hiring amongst industries amongst bachelor's, master's, and doctoral graduates. So the colors correspond to an industry, and the industries are labeled from bottom to top. So for university is down at the bottom because that color is down at the bottom. And so it's a stacked area graph for each of these. I would like to point out the dark blue area. This is hiring in oil and gas. This is where we saw the decrease in hiring pretty dramatically starting in 2014 or 2015 and 2016 amongst bachelor's graduates. This is when we started to see the slowdown in the oil and gas industry, which is now just showing up in the federal data. And so with the decrease in oil and gas hiring, you saw more students going into environmental services and the federal government. And you see that the industries are a bit more varied for bachelor's graduates. So some of them have been able to find positions in agriculture and utilities and transportation and construction, and still be within the geosciences. When you look at hiring for master's graduates, again, and I point you to the dark blue for oil and gas, and you can see while they were still hiring master's graduates, the percentage decreased over that time period as well. And along with that decrease, you saw an increase in federal government hiring in particular. And then finally, hiring amongst doctoral graduates. Not surprising, most doctoral graduates go into four-year university and into research institutes. Those two industries, just about every doctoral graduate in those industries are postdocs. But you did see strong hiring in oil and gas until we hit 2015 into 2016. Okay, so these next three graphs are vector graphs. When I ask about their future plans in the geosciences, they tell me if they have a job or if they're seeking a job in the geosciences. So if they have a job, they tell me information about their industry and where they're working. If they tell me that they're still seeking a job in the geosciences, they tell me which industries they are interested in finding a job. So this figure has the interest in industry sector amongst those that are still seeking a job in the geosciences at the point of graduation. And then this is the percentage of those hired in an industry sector at the point of graduation. Each color represents a different industry. And because they're vectors, they're not linear from left to right. They change depending on the relationship between interest and hiring. So I have tried to make this as clear as possible, trying to label the start of a line as 2013 and the end of a line as 2017. So to point out a couple of these in particular, if we look at oil and gas, we have, a decently high hiring amongst bachelor's graduates and a decently high interest. And not surprisingly, as the industry went down in hiring, the interest in that industry also went down. If you look at state and local government, which is this yellow line, it starts down here and then it moves up. And I think it's interesting that interest in state and local government has increased, but hiring still remains incredibly low, down to nothing in 2017 amongst bachelor's graduates. And then finally, I'll point out environmental services. As we saw hiring increase, we also saw interest increase, although after 2014, the interest remained high, but the hiring went down just a little bit. So here are the vector graphs, the vector graph for master's graduates. And again, I'll highlight oil and gas. We have high hiring and, medium level of interest. Not quite everybody was interested in oil and gas, but high hiring. But then hiring decreased and interest only decreased a little bit, about 10%. over that time period, even though hiring dramatically decreased. If you look at state and local, which is again this yellow line, it starts here at 2013 and it goes up and around. And so interest goes up and down with state and local, but hiring still stays with state and local government, but hiring still stays fairly low. And then environmental services, we saw an increase in interest that corresponded with an increase in hiring into 2014. And then hiring decreased, but we saw a slight increase in interest, and it kind of circled around. So the environmental sector for masters is pretty interesting when you look at hiring versus interest. And then finally, amongst doctoral graduates, we see some very interesting patterns. For example, if you look at oil and gas again, we have most of the graduates that were still seeking a job were not interested at all in oil and gas, but they were hiring. And so when they realized that interest went up in 2014, but then with the downturn in that industry, the interest and hiring both went down. And then this green line over here is four-year universities. And not surprisingly, a lot of students that are still seeking a job are interested in four-year and four-year hires. A lot of doctorates for their postdoc positions, but interest remains kind of the same, even though hiring goes up, but then interest goes up as hiring goes down. I think that's pretty interesting. And then if we look at research institutes, we have this really high interest with low hiring, and then that decreases and comes back around with higher interest and slightly higher hiring. I think there's some interesting dynamics that these vector graphs display, and there could be some interplay between interest in hiring as things change in the economy and how that changes the students' perceptions of job availability and what they're interested in doing. But we also ask for those that were hired what their starting annual salaries are. And so I will say just about anything that's over 90,000 for all three graphs, that's within the oil and gas industry. And so there's a clear, there's kind of a clear range of salaries for bachelors, for their starting salaries for bachelor's graduates. And while we have less than 30K going up over that 5 years, we do see a bit of a sustained percentage of 23 to 25% in 2017 for $30,000 to $50,000 a year. So there are some good salaries out there for bachelor's graduates to be out in the workforce and earn some experience before maybe going back for a graduate degree. For employed master's graduates, I think it's interesting you see kind of two major ranges. So you have the $40,000 to $60,000, $70,000 a year range for many master's graduates, but then you also have the $90,000 to $120,000 range. And like I said, that's mostly oil and gas hiring, but the master's degree can be very lucrative for your opening annual salary. And particularly in 2017, this growth right here from 40 to 60K. Amongst doctoral graduates, you only have really that one major range from 40 to $70,000, $80,000 a year, with the majority making $40,000 to $50,000. So when you look at the graph of employed doctoral graduates versus employed master's graduates, it's clear that the master's can be much more lucrative for starting annual salaries than the doctoral degree, depending on the industry that they have found a job. So I actually followed up with participants in the exit survey from the years 2013 through 2016 to ask them a little bit about their job career path up to that point, because they're still considered early career geoscientists, and asked them a few questions about what they're currently doing and what skill, and a little bit about skills. So just for a little context, after graduation, for those that took the exit survey between 2013 and 2016, 50% of the bachelor's graduates, 63% of the master's graduates, and 82 of the doctoral graduates had a job in the geosciences when they took the follow-up survey. The average number of jobs that they had held since finishing their terminal degree was 2, and the average time to find that first job was 2.3 months. So it takes a little bit of time, which I think is not surprising, but 2 months, an average time of 2 months, I think is pretty good for our industry. So these are, when I asked them about skills they wish they knew when they finished their degree, these are many of the skills that were mentioned in the open answer for this question. As you can see, I mean, a lot of these are incredibly useful skills for all sorts of industries within the geosciences. In particular, we saw a lot mentioning computer programming, coding, and scripting, and statistics and writing was a common one, and communication. We also asked them what skills that they had gained since graduation, and you can see some similarities in that last list: computer programming, coding, scripting, communication, data analysis, writing, field skills, statistics. What's even more interesting is that these are the same skills that employers have said to us that they are looking for amongst their future employees. So moving forward with the exit survey, the 2018, so academic year 2017-2018 data has been collected. The report will be out soon, and we will blast that out to the community once that is ready to be downloaded. But we feel like the exit survey has become a very established program element and service at AGI. It has enhanced a lot of the work that we have done, and I think it's become a useful tool for many in the community. But ultimately, the survey is for you. So I'm always open to suggestions, edits, new ideas, new questions, concerns that the community may have, or anything that goes within this that we can kind of edit and change and evolve this survey so it continues to be a useful tool for the geoscience community. And finally, AGI has just launched a new program called the Academic Associates Program. It's kind of a relaunch. We used to have an Academic Associates Program, and we closed it down, and we've relaunched it to better serve the academic community in particular. So departments can join this program, and we have a variety of benefits that come with joining this program, which you can find at the website. I think the one that I'm most excited about is the members of the academic associates get to have a virtual meeting with the workforce team and anyone else at AGI that they would be interested in talking to talk about the issues that they're most concerned about. And that's really important for what we do, because we are very reactive to what the community finds is an important question to be asking. And so the conversations that come out of the academic associates meetings will then inform the future research that comes out of our office. So all our reports can be found at our website. I can be contacted at this email, or you can contact the whole workforce team at workforce@americangeosciences.org. And again, there's the Academic Associates web address if you would like to look for more information. And with that, I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Carolyn. So we do have one question that has come in. So thinking about the internships, particularly at the bachelor's, have you asked or have you heard about the reasons why bachelor's students have not pursued internships? Wondering if they have a bigger need to make money that, to help pay for school that might be impeding their ability to take on an internship.
Sure. I think there are a lot of factors that may go into that. We have not asked that question. I think that would be an open answer question, but it's something that we've been thinking about is what are those drivers that prevent the participation in internships? Anecdotally, I've heard a lot of conversation about that the opportunities are not there or they're hard to find. And I've also heard from the employer side that it can be kind of expensive to train an intern for a few months and then they leave. So I think there's multiple issues that are affecting that particular data point.
Um, in the quantitative skill set, at the doctoral level, you show a fairly reasonable increase in the advanced skills in the last survey from prior years. Do you think that's related to some of the schools that happen to be responding, or do you think that there's a fundamental shift where the research is requiring the students to build up those quantitative skills?
I think that question might be better better reached when I look at the 2018 data and see if that's sustained. So I haven't looked at that yet. But um, if I was making a guess, I think it might be the makeup of the departments that were participating.
Okay. Um, so, what are the challenges that you have faced while conducting these surveys, and how have you been addressing those challenges?
I think the biggest challenge is participation varies from year to year. And while our numbers are still high in participation, it's the actual departments change from year to year. And that's due to many factors. The biggest one being the department chair, head or chair changes pretty regularly. And so I may have been communicating with one department chair and then for a couple of years, and then the next year, like, oh, it's so and so is now in charge, and they'll take care of this now. And sometimes they do. Sometimes participation drops because change in leadership or change in priorities at that department. And so I think that has been my biggest challenge. The other thing is, and this is, I mean, I don't know how to fix this problem. It's when I send out recruitment emails, a lot of it goes into spam. And so some departments who would like to be participating each year don't always get the initial invitation letter that I send out because it automatically gets sent to their spam. Really, the biggest thing is just to keep communicating and keep communicating. I've started sending out individual notes to department representatives who haven't participated, who normally do, to say, hey, you may have missed this. I just wanted to let you know that the survey is out and ready for your students, and try to really do a lot of one-on-one communication to combat both of those issues.
Do you have a sense for among the bachelor's recipients how many didn't take an internship or a research experience? In essence, just did a coursework based degree.
I've looked at that. I know I've looked at that, but I cannot remember. But each year, there's no bachelor's graduate or master's or doctoral graduate, for that matter, that hasn't taken that has gone through their program without taking any of those co-curricular things. Every graduate has at least taken a field or research or internship, and usually two of the three.
Okay. Um, does your survey include students that are in oceanography, marine science, or marine biology?
Yes. Yes, it does. We have a very broad definition of geoscience at AGI, and I try to cover all major areas. So, for example, so yes, marine science is involved. However, their participation, their percentages are smaller than those individuals that are completing a geology degree. But we do make a strong effort, particularly to reach out to our member societies and our federation to push that out to their student members. So, for example, the American Meteorological Society just became one of our members last year. And so I reached out to AMS for the 2018 data collection, and they pushed it out to their student membership. And so as a result, the participation amongst atmospheric science graduates went up quite a bit. So I'm really interested to see that comparison this year.
Okay. Can you discuss how you get the survey actually delivered to the degree recipients?
Yes, I use representatives either through departments or through the member societies. It's a whole lot easier than them trying to provide me with lists of graduates. And I find that the students are much more receptive to talking to or receiving an email from someone they know than a complete stranger, of which I would be. So we send out a general recruitment email to all geoscience departments to see if they would like to participate. And then I have a representative from each department that I continue to communicate with and remind them that the survey is open and available. And we hit them at every graduation point, after the fall semester, after the spring semester, and after the summer semester. And so that's what I do with the departments. And so then it's up to them to send it out to their students. And so they've used various methods. Usually they send it out as an email, but there are actually some departments that within their senior courses or capstone courses or seminar courses will hand it out and have them take it in the classroom, which is great. As far as the societies go, I reach out to our societies and our federation that have student members, and then they will typically send an email out to their student membership asking for participation in the survey.
So another question here is, how do these results compare to other sciences like biology, chemistry, and physics?
I don't know. I think that's a good question. I can do a little bit of comparison with data that comes out from the National Science Foundation, but not with some of the real specific skills development questions that we're asking in this exit survey. But I haven't done a comparison with any other societies in other STEM areas that may do an exit survey as well.
Okay. Great questions. We'll give another minute here to see if any other questions come in. If you would like to audibly ask your questions, you can hit the little raise hand button and I can unmute you. Will the slides be available?
Sure. And most of the data presented here will also be in the upcoming status of the Geoscience Workforce Report.
Okay. So we can make those slides available on the AGI website for the webinars. So based on what I see here, I don't see a massive shortage of geoscience workers. We keep hearing about what has happened to that. Would you like me to answer that one, Carolyn?
Would you like to tackle that one?
So one of the things, that we've been studying closely on that is that the shortages in full-time equivalencies, as basically measured by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And we've had a few webinars earlier and a few other talks, and some of that data will be available in our upcoming report. What we've seen, one of the key things when you have labor demand, you can offset substantial amounts of labor demand through innovation, as well as substitution and other mechanisms other than just hiring folks. And that's actually what we're seeing is innovation is displacing a lot of that demand growth right now. It's mostly in the machine learning area. It's had very major impacts in the mineral sector and increasingly so in the energy and water sectors as well. Basically displacing a lot of sort of mid-skill level geoscience activity. So the aggregate demand technically still there. It's how it's being addressed, and and that's one of the shortcomings that one has with the Bureau of Labor Statistics data, is it's measured by a level of effort relative to GDP, and how much work a person did at some benchmark point. So innovation is a very big area, and I think this is one of the key reasons why we see employers saying these students need better quantitative skills. They need to be better prepared for the workforce to engage and utilize these new efficiencies. And one of the key outcomes there is they're doing a lot less just rote work and a lot more of the actual science. So the quality of the work that they have to do is more challenging and more intellectually engaging.